Hello, and welcome to my Modlist showcase, where I give an overview and opinion on Modlists to help find the right one for you. Fallout 3 and New Vegas are games I have such fond memories of, but every time I want to replay them, I naturally want to mod them. And the moment I start modding them, I think, ugh, this is awkward, and give up. Like, they're not that difficult to mod, but it's just a lot more tinkering and making them work on modern hardware, and there's a lot of performance and stuttering issues. It's just a lot that runs you down. Which is why I looked for a mod list that can fix it all for me, while providing some gameplay improvements on top. And so I came across Begin Again, created by Spring Heel John, a list that uses the Tale of Two Wastelands to combine Fallout 3 and New Vegas into a stable and seamless experience. The version I've been playing on is version 2.3.1, released on the 24th of January 2024, and you can check on their Discord to see if there's any updates. As for what this list is, it describes itself as a mod list focusing on bringing the gameplay feel of later Fallout titles to Fallout 3 and New Vegas, while being careful to preserve what made those games unique. Built on top of the fantastic Tale of Two Wastelands, this mod list serves to expand on what they achieved by modernising certain aspects of the game that have not aged well, and it slightly rebalances things where needed. Begin Again is downloaded using the Wabajek Modlist installer, with a handy in-depth guide found on the list Nexus page. And make sure to read through it properly. If you're like me and used to installing modlists for Skyrim and Fallout 4, you'll find the instructions for this are a little more involved. It's still quick and simple, but you have to manually add Tale of Two Wastelands. It's only a matter of moving a couple of files around and waiting for a long install to do its thing. But yeah, read the install guide. Once complete, the list totals to around 35GB, and there's Fallout 3 and New Vegas on top, including DLCs. And in the mod organizer, there's a couple mods in the optional mods section. Quick start for if you want to skip Fallout 3's intro. There's aim assist, which I turned off, but you might want to have on if you use a controller, which is fully supported by the way. There's also ultra-wide support, and finally there's DXVK. I won't get into what this is, but you'll likely end up turning it off if you have a GPU older than 2015. This section of the install guide talks about the mod and how to cap the frame rate, which is recommended because the game's engine is kinda jank and frames might go all over the place. Following the guide, I ended up installing the Special K program, which gives me this menu in-game. And it's simple, just an easy frame rate capper here, and an option to switch on HDR for those with HDR monitors. Fallout 3 and New Vegas now look far better, but this list hasn't gone completely overboard with graphics mods. Not only because it would remove the vanilla feel, but also these games don't fare too well with numerous graphics overhauls. You may think, these games are well over a decade old, so I can run this, but there's frame rate and stuttering issues no matter the system. So yeah, with graphics mods, often less is more. And so, Begin Again has chosen a good selection. The thing that stands out immediately is the new weather and lighting, with the Desert Natural Weathers mod making skies far more detailed in both games. And it helps remove that green tint from Fallout 3, which I know some people like. I even have a bit of nostalgia for it, but I gotta admit it looks a lot better without. And the atmospheric lighting tweaks gives a ton of depth to interiors, with far better colours that make the image less flat. Then there's the textures and LODs, with them being far sharper and way more detailed, while still very much keeping to vanilla. It's a huge step up for both the landscapes and all the usual items like weapons and armour and such. And even when sometimes I come across a texture and I'm like, that's kinda low res. I then look at the original game and think, oh no, this is way better. Like, it's easy to forget that Fallout 3 is 16 years old. People who were born the same year it released will be going off to college soon. Sorry, I'll stop having my crisis. The same also goes for NPCs, where vanilla textures are improved to remove strange artifacts and slight purple smears some add on their foreheads and cheeks. There's even more NPCs in general, with the New Vegas Strip and casinos having far more people hanging around, so it doesn't feel comically empty. Speaking of filling the landscape, a few landscape mods have filled up New Vegas with new props, buildings and vehicles. Basically, when New Vegas released, it was a pretty huge mess, and a bunch of content had to be cut out for it to run better on consoles. But now it's added back, as well as some extra details that make the desert a little less barren. It's stuff like more rusted cars, broken roads and chairs in buildings, so it's nothing that takes away from the feel of New Vegas' map. Moving on to performance, I have a consistently locked 60 FPS and it never dips below, although I can keep around 100 if it's unlocked. I have an RTX 3080, so you might think, well yeah, obviously it runs well. But trust me, modding this game can tank performance no matter what you're running it on. I'm just thankful this list even gets Fallout 3 working on my PC. The main thing is that the frame rate is stable, and that the annoying stutters are minimal. If I sprint in a straight line, I'll get a quick stutter every now and then as stuff loads, but it's pretty rare, and it's the smoothest these games have found in a long while. A big part of why the performance is great is because there's no EMB with this list, which is absolutely a wise choice. EMBs tend to tank performance, increase the likelihood of stutters, and often have jank anti-aliasing with these games. They've gotten better over the years, but for Fallout 3 and New Vegas, they've never been a huge must-have game changer like in Skyrim or Fallout 4. So yeah, I think better without. And finally, it's worth mentioning the bug fixes. There's a plethora fixing texture problems, weird audio, clipping, animations, and so much more. But most importantly, I've not experienced a single crash during my playtime. So Tale of Two Wastelands is the big selling point. It basically ports Fallout 3 over to the New Vegas engine. It's like when you're playing Fallout 3 and look at Steam, it'll still say you're running New Vegas, because technically you are. Not only does this make Fallout 3 more stable, but it also brings over all the new features added with New Vegas. So stuff like companion perks, weapon mods, aiming down sights, crafting and plant harvesting, they're all now part of 3. And it fits so naturally that many of these features I actually assumed are already part of the game. As for how this list transitions between the capital wasteland and the Mojave Desert, I'll cover that in the quest section of this video. The next big overhaul is the J Sawyer mod, or more specifically the Sawyer Batty mod, which applies the changes to both Fallouts. If you've modded New Vegas in the past, then you've probably heard of it. It's a mod created by the project director of New Vegas, and rebalances pretty much all aspects of the game, and includes features that never made it to the final cut. This mod adjusts so much that I couldn't possibly talk about it all, but many of the features include weapon, armor and general items having their stats adjusted for better balance. Plus health is lowered by default but scales better with perks, and tons of perks have had their requirements and effects tweaked. The number of changes are in the hundreds, so I could go on and on. But despite being so large, it's all stuff that fits seamlessly. And that's a key part of this list, making everything work seamlessly. Like with the Just Assorted mod collection, which adds a dynamic crosshair, hit markers, sprinting, and a Fallout 4 style loot menu, all of which can be easily toggled on and off for your preference. The Friends with Benefits perk pack adds unique perks for being idolised by a faction, which works perfectly with the Reputations mod, carrying over the reputation system into Fallout 3. Cooking Revolution adds more recipes and cooking options. Buying and selling prices are harsher if you have low barter skill. Power armor is more powerful, but has larger penalties to sneaking and decreases stats if you're not fully trained with it. And finally, there's progressive hardcore needs, which makes the survival skill adjust the speed at which you get hungry, thirsty and tired. Although of course that's only if you turn on hardcore mode. On top of all the balance changes made with the J Sawyer mod, there's tweaks to recoil, where different ammo types will affect weapon recoil as you shoot, and you'll need to actually compensate for the movements. And the weapon requirement system means many high-end weapons have a strength or certain skill requirement, and if you don't meet those requirements, you can still use the weapon, but it will have penalties to sway, bullet spread and reload speed. You can now also cook grenades to shorten their fuse. Sneak attack damage scales with your sneak skill, rather than always granting 2 times damage right from the get-go. You can melee bash with any weapon. And again, there's the ability to aim down sights in Fallout 3, which is obviously a huge game changer. And finally, the new movement is also a game changer, as being able to fluidly move around, jump and run diagonally makes combat feel so much better. Just one of those things we take for granted nowadays. So, wrapping up the combat section, it basically takes vanilla combat and removes the awkwardness. It's no giant overhaul like the Vicious Wastes mod, which turns it into a Stalker game-like experience. Instead, it looks at all the features added to a game like Fallout 4 and integrates it seamlessly. So how the Tale of Two Wastelands is handled by this list is a little different from default. Usually you have the option to start in Vault 101 or the Mojave Desert, but for this list you'll always begin in Fallout 3. Begin Again has been designed with this in mind, and so mods like the Lone Courier dialogue will add new dialogue options into New Vegas, which has you talk about the capital Wasteland, and overall the balance is tweaked to seamlessly transition from Fallout 3 to New Vegas, which you can technically do at any point, although it would be incredibly difficult for low-level characters. Following a short quest, you'll find yourself at a new train station where you can travel to the Mojave. It will then play a clip saying 3 years later, which is actually lore accurate, and then the opening of New Vegas will begin. And there's something just so satisfying about wandering the capital Wasteland and then seamlessly travelling to New Vegas without having to close the game. Now when you make the journey, your character and travelling companions will carry over, although the mod Benny Humbles You makes it so you're reset at level 1 and most of your gear is taken. It makes it so you don't start New Vegas at max level and insta-kill everything right away. Plus it works story-wise, because, you were shot in the head and left in a ditch. And I'm no doctor, but I think you're not going to be in the best shape after that. Moving on, there aren't any other huge new quests or locations, although the functional post-game ending mod does allow you to continue New Vegas after the credits roll, and the choices you make for the ending will actually be reflected. So like the Legion will be gone if you help the NCR, Brotherhood of Steel members will patrol around if they're still alive, and so on. Plus there are a couple new changes to the Vegas Strip, where you can open the Lucky 38 casino for business, or convince Mr. House to start rebuilding, and in general Vegas is just much more full of life and easier to roam around. There's no new armours or weapons added with this list, although a huge amount have better textures and even new models, so they look and feel way better. Plus there's more item distribution, with the weapons from the Gunrunners DLC being scattered around the wastes, and items from the outside DLC locations aren't just limited to that area. It's also worth noting that the Root and Loot mod makes it so static things like desks, lockers, crates and such are now all lootable. Plus there are expired and homemade Stimpak variants included with the J-Sawyer mod. For some more miscellaneous changes, the UI is far more clean and useful with Vanilla UI+, which I did change the colour of, as you gotta have the Fallout 3 green. There's now detailed settings for adjusting FOV. B24 weapon inertia adds sway to weapons to give them weight, and B24 loot adds a hand animation for picking up stuff. Failing to hack into a terminal doesn't lock you out, but instead ups the difficulty by a level. You can no longer heal yourself to full health over and over with the Fallout 3 infirmary, which was pretty broken. And there's the huge amount of Stewie's tweaks. There's way too many to mention, but it adds a plethora of quality of life features. So say you want to toggle the HUD on and off with a key, you can search for it and edit how you'd like. You can select what details are shown on your compass, change how much XP certain actions give, adjust pickpocketing and looting and so much. Now the list already has everything set up and balanced, so it's not really recommended you adjust anything, but I did add a key for disabling the HUD, and I switched off the crosshair. Plus, I did adjust the drop mag mod, so now reloading drops all the ammo I had left in the magazine, although I can still pick it up from the ground. I just like how it forces me to stop spamming the reload button. Oh, and I now remember, I did also disable the dynamic depth of field mod, as it blurred out the surrounding world when aiming and it's just not for me. Honestly, this list checks all the boxes for what I look for in a Fallout 3 and New Vegas list. It's stable and performs well, it doesn't go overboard with overhauls, but still improves and balances what the games already offer. It adds quality of life features and modern game mechanics to make it far easier to play. It's truly the best version of these games. If you've never played Fallout 3, then it's absolutely the ideal way to experience it. And I do say the same for New Vegas, although if you have played 3 and you just want to focus on New Vegas, then the fact you have to start with 3 will probably turn you off. Like I'd say 3 is definitely worth replaying with this list, but if you want to try this and you really don't want to play through 3, you could follow a guide that gets you to New Vegas easy enough. It's what I did to record this footage. And if you're like me and have played these games, but you just want to revisit a polished version, then again it's an easy list to recommend. The only people it's not for are those who want radically different overhauls, like making it the ultimate survival simulator, or those who want more quests, lands and NPCs everywhere. But for everyone else, I can't recommend it more. It's also just worth experiencing Tale of Two Wastelands if you haven't, as there's something so satisfying about keeping the same character across these two huge adventures. Thank you for watching. If you gave it a like, I'd really appreciate it as it helps the channel grow. And be sure to check out my Discord or my YouTube streams that I've started doing a bit more. and all that, Twitch and stuff. And a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, So Doomy, Gavin Van Buren, Alex Campbell, Connor Peterson, Esteban, John Ratz, Ter Aura, Jaden Shaw, Jake Carlo, Dweezil P. Pants, Alec Bentley, Jack Ma, and Christian Hell. I appreciate all these contributions so much. I'm working a lot on these videos all weekdays and weekends, and so yeah, these kind donations help me keep going. And thank you everyone, and farewell.